Usually when we talk about, like, a medical diagnosis, there's this expectation of precision. It feels very much like engineering.
Right. It's objective.
Yeah, you break your arm, the X-ray shows that jagged white line on the black background. The doctor just points to the screen and says, well, there it is.
It is entirely binary. I mean, the bone is either fractured or it is intact. We basically build our whole understanding of reality on that kind of visible, categorizable proof.
It is deeply comforting to have that level of certainty. But then, you step into the world of digital information and modern media today, and suddenly it is like that X-ray machine is fundamentally broken.
Oh, completely broken.
Or worse, actually, it is showing you a perfectly healthy bone while your arm is clearly shattered in front of you. We are looking at a diagnostic landscape that is, well, honestly, it is entirely murky.
It is the absolute definition of diagnostic muddy waters. The tools we used to rely on to prove something was real, a photograph, a video recording, an audio clip.
The stuff we trust implicitly.
Exactly. They just do not work the same way anymore. They have been fundamentally compromised.
And that is exactly what we are focusing on today. Welcome to the Deep Dive. We are taking a very close look at the modern crisis of information integrity. Our mission today is to give you, the listener, a clear map of this really murky landscape.
And we have a lot of ground to cover.
We really do. We are pulling together a tall stack of data today. This ranges from global guides compiled by Wikidemocracy to federal trade reports, alongside some really deep analyses from Pew Research, Reuters, and the Brookings Institution. We are not just going to skim the surface here.
No, because in a world where artificial intelligence can literally fabricate reality on demand, understanding the why behind our information ecosystem is just as important as the what.
Right.
We cannot just talk about the shiny new technology. I mean, we have to dig into human psychology, the economics of institutional trust, and how those elements basically intersect to change what we believe is true.
Okay, let's explore this. We are going to examine the acute problems that large media organizations face right now and establish a clear timeline of how synthetic media evolved so startlingly fast.
It really was fast.
Astonishingly fast. But most importantly, by the end of this conversation, we want to arm you with actionable, concrete steps for verifying claims and maintaining your own digital hygiene. Because it turns out the front line of this battle isn't just happening in, the server rooms of major tech companies.
Right. It is happening right on your phone every single time you swipe.
It really is. So to understand the current crisis in professional journalism and our own digital safety, we first have to look at how quickly the ground has shifted underneath our feet.
Yeah, we need to trace the trajectory of how deception evolved.
Because if we rewind just a little bit, it is astonishing how fast we went from recognizing obvious, clunky fakes to genuinely questioning our own eyes. Let's start back in 2017.
2017. Simpler time.
Right. According to the research we are looking at, specifically from Pew, experts back then were actively debating a fundamental question. They were asking, would technology eventually reduce the spread of falsehoods? Or would it just make manipulation harder to control?
It is fascinating and honestly a little heartbreaking to look back at that 2017 debate. There was a genuine optimistic camp among technologists back then.
They really thought they could fix it with more code.
They did. They believed that better algorithms and automated fact-checking AI would eventually just clean up the internet. The thought was that the tech would act like a digital immune system.
Like it would automatically flag and neutralize bad information before it could spread.
Exactly, like white blood cells for the internet.
But, spoiler alert to everyone listening, that is not what happened. It feels like the exact opposite happened.
The opposite happened because the incentives were misaligned. The technology did not become a localized immune system. It became an industrialized fabrication engine.
Let's trace that industrialization, because by 2020, we see the Government Accountability Office, the GAO, issuing a major assessment specifically on deepfakes.
Right.
And even then, they were noting these early significant risks to fraud, national security, and public trust. But I remember 2020, it still felt a bit like a niche concern.
Yeah, it was mostly parlor tricks.
Right, it felt like, oh, look at this neat trick where someone made a politician's mouth move to a funny song on TikTok.
Yes, the early deepfakes were novelties. And more importantly, they were detectable.
You could see the seams.
Exactly. They were often glitchy, like the lighting on the face would not match the background, or the shadows were pointing in the wrong direction, or the subject's blinking looked completely erratic and unnatural. The human eye could often still catch the seams.
But the progression from that 2020 GAO report to what happened in 2024 is just staggering. The Brookings Institution detailed how the 2024 election cycle was entirely defined by generative AI and what they termed AI memes.
This is where the shift in speed and scale really takes hold. In the past, creating a convincing fake required a studio, expensive software, and hours of expert labor.
You had to be a professional.
Right. If you wanted to doctor a photo, you needed to understand layering, masking, color grading, and pixel manipulation. Generative AI changed the equation entirely. It basically removed all the friction.
I always think of it like the evolution of special effects in movies.
Yeah.
We went from obvious, clunky stop-motion animation, where you can literally see the clay moving frame by frame, to seamless CGI that you don't even register as an effect anymore.
Yes, exactly.
You watch a movie and assume the building exploding is just a physical set. But now, that CGI isn't just in a blockbuster movie. It is being used for neighborhood gossip, local elections, and global politics.
And it has been democratized. A single operator sitting at their kitchen table with a laptop can now produce vast amounts of personalized, persuasive media instantly.
Without knowing how to code.
They do not need to know how to code or even how to use image editing software. They just type a sentence. They say, show me a picture of a politician accepting a bribe in a dark alley. And the machine just generates it.
It's point-and-click reality.
It is no longer just Photoshop. It is point-and-click reality generation.
And the Brookings report pointed out something really insidious about how these AI memes operate. They blur the line between parody and deception.
Oh, the context to collapse.
Right. People were initially sharing highly realistic AI-generated images as political satire.
Yeah.
It was meant as a joke. But as those images spread across different networks, getting screenshotted and reposted by different users, the context of satire was completely lost.
Yes.
Suddenly, a joke becomes a widely believed political narrative.
That context collapse is the real danger. When an image leaves its original creator, the metadata or even just the original caption saying, hey, look at this funny AI generation, rarely travels with it.
The image just stands alone on someone else's feed.
And human perception evolved to trust what we see and hear.
Which makes me wonder, is the technology moving faster than our psychological ability to adapt to it?
This raises an important question, actually, about whether human perception can ever keep up with algorithmic generation. The research suggests the answer is a resounding no.
No.
Think about our biology. If we are walking on the savannah and we see a lion, our brain does not pause to verify the metadata of the lion.
Right, you just run.
You do not ask for peer-reviewed studies on lion behavior. It tells you to run. We are biologically hardwired to believe our sensory inputs because for hundreds of thousands of years, seeing something meant it was physically there.
And now it doesn't.
Right. Algorithms are now generating content that perfectly bypasses our modern critical thinking and speaks directly to that ancient sensory trust.
And that sensory trust is getting violated in increasingly bizarre systemic ways. Like, let's look at 2025. Reuters reported on this moment that feels like a huge reality check. A judge in Minnesota actually rebuked a legal filing in a lawsuit because the expert declaration contained citations that were entirely invented by AI.
We need to pause and look at the mechanism of why this happened, because it explains the core flaw in how we interact with this technology. People often treat large language models, the text-based AIs, as if they are search engines querying a database of facts.
Right, like an incredibly smart encyclopedia that just knows everything.
But they are not encyclopedias. They are prediction engines. They are designed to predict the most likely next word in a sequence based on the vast amounts of text they were trained on.
So when a lawyer asks an AI to find legal precedents to support their case, the AI isn't actually looking through a law library.
No, not at all. The AI knows what a legal citation looks like. It knows the structure, right? It knows there's a name, a verses, another name, a volume number, a reporter abbreviation, and a page number.
So it just mimics the pattern.
Exactly. It generates a highly plausible, perfectly formatted string of text that looks exactly like a real citation, but it maps to absolutely nothing in physical reality. It is a hallucination.
And think about the implications of that for a second. The legal system, which is basically the ultimate arbiter of evidence and fact in society, was infiltrated by hallucinated data.
Yes.
A professional submitted a document, assuming the technology was acting as a research assistant, when in fact it was acting as a creative fiction writer. If the courts are struggling to distinguish between real precedent and predictive text, what hope does the average person scrolling through a feed have?
Very little. Which brings us to the current state of affairs in 2026. The sources paint a picture that is, frankly, dizzying.
It really is.
In March 2026, Reuters reported that AI deepfakes were severely muddying the waters of the U.S. midterm campaigns. And simultaneously, the Associated Press noted that state actors were driving visual misinformation about the Iran war.
Using AI-generated videos and recycled footage to totally obscure authentic information from the front lines.
Exactly.
And it isn't just high-stakes geopolitics and war either. The Reuters report from January 2026 highlights that even global sports are dealing with AI-generated scandals, fake announcements, and fabricated audio of managers saying terrible things. It has permeated every single layer of public life.
When sports fans cannot even trust a viral video of a manager resigning or a player demanding a trade, you know the information ecosystem has fundamentally shifted.
The baseline assumption is no longer, well, this is real, unless proven fake.
Right. It is moving toward this might be fake, even if it looks entirely real.
Which brings us directly to the doorstep of the institutions we traditionally rely on to tell us what is real. If I cannot trust a video on my feed, I used to be able to turn on the evening news or open a major newspaper and assume a team of professionals had verified it for me.
That was the social contract, yes.
But our sources highlight a major crisis here: the intense pressure and the plight of large media organizations today.
The Wiki Democracy Guide provides some vital context on this. Public trust in professional journalism is in a steep, documented decline across many countries.
And this is not happening in a vacuum.
No, it is fueled by a convergence of severe factors. We are talking about deep political polarization, perceived bias in reporting, and the brutal economic pressure that has essentially decimated local journalism.
The economic part is so crucial. When a local newspaper goes out of business, a community loses the reporters who physically attend the city council meetings or review the police blotter.
And that creates a vacuum.
It does. And the Pew Research Center data from 2024 and 2025 highlights exactly what is filling that vacuum, especially when we look at changing audience habits. Younger adults are actively turning away from traditional news organizations. Instead, they're relying heavily on social platforms and what Pew explicitly calls news influencers.
Pew found that about 1/5 of American adults now regularly get their news from these social media personalities. And, there's an obvious appeal.
Sure, they're entertaining.
Audiences value their conversational style, their accessibility, and the feeling that they are getting the news from a peer rather than some faceless institution. But there is a systemic, structural problem with this shift.
Because it completely lacks the guardrails.
Exactly. Influencer-based news almost entirely lacks the traditional guardrails of journalism. Think about a standard newsroom. If a reporter writes a story, it goes to an editor.
It goes through layers.
Right. If there is a contentious claim, it might go to a fact checker or a legal team. There's a process of independent verification.
And if they get it wrong, there's a standardized method for issuing a retraction or a correction that goes out to the same audience.
But an influencer operating out of their bedroom does not have an editorial board.
Yeah.
If an influencer sees a sensational AI-generated video of a riot and decides to stream about it to 5 million followers, there is no friction.
Nobody's tapping them on the shoulder saying, hey, let's hold off on this.
There is no one pausing the broadcast to verify the metadata. And if they find out later it was fake, a quiet apology video never gets the same algorithmic reach as the initial outrage.
Never. And the algorithm itself is a huge part of the problem. It isn't even just that people are consciously choosing to follow influencers instead of traditional journalists.
Right.
The Pew reports note that users are frequently being fed these personalities by algorithms rather than making deliberate choices. Your feed just decides what news you see based on what keeps you scrolling.
And algorithms optimize for engagement, not truth. Emotional resonance, anger, fear, shock, that keeps people on the platform longer than nuanced, verified reporting.
So the system inherently rewards the most sensational claims, regardless of their factual basis.
Which brings us to a concept that completely changes the job for the journalists who are still trying to do the work. The Brookings Institution formalized a concept in 2024 that I found absolutely striking in the source material. It is called the liar's dividend.
Oh, this is so important. Let's explore how this actually works in practice.
The liar's dividend is arguably the most dangerous side effect of the synthetic media era. It means that the mere existence of generative AI does not just deceive people with fake videos.
It does something worse.
It provides a highly convenient shield for bad actors to dismiss authentic, real evidence.
Let's paint a picture of this for you listening. Imagine a corrupt official is caught on a real, authentic security camera accepting a bribe. 10 years ago, that video is the end of their career. The evidence is undeniable.
But today, because the public is acutely aware that deepfakes exist, that corrupt official has a new defense. They can stand at a podium and simply claim, well, that video is an AI deepfake created by my political opponents to smear me.
Wow. So they don't even have to prove it as a fake.
They do not have to prove anything, they just have to introduce the doubt. Because the public knows deepfakes are possible, that denial becomes instantly plausible to their supporters.
It gives them an out.
Exactly. The technology casts a shadow of doubt over everything that is genuine. The AI does not even need to be used to create a fake video. The fact that it could be used pays a dividend to the liar.
That completely upends the traditional role of a journalist. There was this poignant quote in April 2026 from journalist Yelda Hakim speaking to Reuters, where she talked about the fundamental collapse of seeing is believing.
Yes.
She essentially said journalists can no longer trust their own eyes or ears when a source hands them material.
Think about the immense, crushing burden that places on newsrooms. In the past, if a reporter received a video of an explosion at a factory, the video itself was the primary proof.
You just run the tape.
Now, the video is just a hypothesis. Journalists must now deploy forensic techniques. They have to run complex source verification, perform reverse image searches, extract hidden metadata, track down the original files, cross-reference satellite imagery.
It's like they have to become digital detectives.
Exactly. They have to gather contextual physical evidence just to prove a video has not been hallucinated by an algorithm.
Okay, let me push back a little here, playing devil's advocate for you listening.
Yeah.
We hear a lot about this steep decline in media trust, and it is usually framed as a tragedy. But isn't a healthy distrust of the media a good thing for a democracy?
That is a very common question.
Right. Shouldn't we be questioning what large media organizations tell us, rather than just blindly accepting their narratives?
That is a very fair point, and it is a distinction the Wiki Democracy Guide makes very carefully. We have to separate two concepts: informed skepticism and cynicism.
Okay, let's draw that line.
Informed skepticism is exactly what media literacy promotes. It is checking sources, asking for the underlying evidence, comparing how different outlets cover the same event, and recognizing editorial bias.
So active engagement.
Yes, that is incredibly healthy. It keeps institutions accountable. But what we are seeing now, which organizations like RAND describe in their Truth Decay initiative, is a slide past skepticism into pure cynicism. It is the total loss of a shared reality.
So cynicism is just rejecting everything out of hand, regardless of the evidence.
Cynicism is the belief that everyone is lying. All institutions are fundamentally corrupt, and evidence itself does not matter. If you present a cynic with satellite data, sworn testimony, and raw video, they will dismiss it all as a coordinated fabrication.
Which is terrifying.
It is.
Yeah.
When a community cannot even agree on basic factual evidence like whether a town was flooded, whether a vaccine contains a microchip, or whether an election occurred on a certain date, democratic discussion is entirely paralyzed.
Because you can't even get to the debate stage. You can't debate flood relief policy if half the room refuses to acknowledge that the water exists.
Precisely. And conspiracy theories absolutely thrive in that void. When people abandon institutional verification, they tend to cluster around charismatic voices that validate their pre-existing fears.
That makes total sense. If the X-ray machine is broken, people aren't just going to sit there and accept that they don't know what's wrong.
Right.
They're going to start listening to anyone who confidently claims to know what's going on inside the body, regardless of whether that person has medical credentials or is just trying to sell them snake oil.
And that is the true plight of large media. The crisis they face is not just about their bottom line, their advertising revenue, or their subscriber numbers. It is about the collapse of the infrastructure we rely on to establish a baseline of reality.
So, since we can no longer simply trust our eyes, and since professional journalists are overwhelmed by the sheer volume of synthetic content, how do we build defenses for the future?
We have to look at systemic solutions.
Right. How do governments, tech companies, and society at large actually patch the X-ray machine? That leads us into looking at platform governance and provenance technology.
The global response to this crisis is operating on two main tracks, and they are both highly complex. You have technological solutions and you have policy solutions.
Let's start with the tech.
On the technology side, the major focus is on something called provenance technology.
Let's define that, because the sources mention the Coalition for Content Provenance and Authenticity, or CDPA, and the Content Authenticity Initiative. They're working on developing tamper-evident metadata. What does that actually look like in practice?
To understand provenance, we have to understand metadata. Usually when you take a digital photo, your camera attaches basic hidden text to the file.
Like the date and time.
Right, the date, the time, maybe the GPS coordinates. But this standard metadata is easily editable. Anyone can open the file and change the date.
It's just text.
Exactly. Provenance technology is different. It relies on cryptography. Think of it as an unalterable digital history, a chain of custody for a file.
Okay, chain of custody.
When a photographer takes a picture with a camera equipped with the C2PA standard, the camera's internal hardware cryptographically signs the file using a secure key. It permanently seals the data, proving that this pattern of pixels was captured by a real physical lens at this specific time and place.
Okay, so it locks the origin story into the file. What happens if someone tries to mess with it? Say I take that cryptographically sealed photo, open it in editing software, and use an AI tool to add a huge plume of smoke to the background to make it look like a war zone.
The cryptographic seal does not prevent you from editing the photo. You can still add the smoke.
Okay.
But if you use software that supports the standard, the file updates its history. It generates a new cryptographic signature that essentially says, at 2:00 p.m., AI generative fill was used on this specific section of the image. It permanently records the alteration.
So it's like a highly secure digital nutrition label for media. Instead of, this product contains 10% sugar, it says this photo contains 100% natural light, but 20% artificial smoke generated by AI.
That is a great analogy. It provides total transparency. The vision is that if you see an image online, you would theoretically be able to click a small info icon overlook on the picture, and a panel would slide out showing you its entire history.
You see the whole recipe.
Exactly. You could see exactly where it came from, who took it, and every single edit that was made along the way.
That sounds like the perfect solution. But there is a catch, right? Because a 2025 commentary from the RAND Corporation pointed out the severe limits of this technology.
Yes, the limits are significant. The primary limitation, using your food analogy, is that the nutrition label is incredibly fragile, and it keeps falling off when you pass the food to someone else.
How does it fall off? It's cryptographically sealed.
It is sealed within the file structure, but the internet is highly destructive to file structures. Think about how files move. If a photojournalist takes a secure C2PA photo and texts it to an editor, and that editor uploads it to a social media platform.
It changes hands a lot.
Right. And social media platforms automatically compress images to save server space and make them load faster on your phone.
Oh, and during that compression.
During that compression, they often strip away all the metadata, including the cryptographic signatures.
Just to save space.
Exactly. The RAND report noted that once the provenance data disappears, the file looks just as unverifiable as a completely synthetic deepfake. Furthermore, for this entire system to work, you need universal adoption.
Everyone has to use it.
Every camera manufacturer, every software developer, and every social media platform on Earth has to voluntarily agree to adopt and maintain the exact same standard.
Which seems like a monumental, almost impossible task of global coordination. So if the technology isn't a silver bullet, at least not yet, what are lawmakers doing?
Policy is the other track.
Because the sources show a really rapid timeline of global policy attempting to patch these holes, and it's happening fast.
Lawmakers are trying to use policy to enforce what the technology cannot guarantee. In August 2024, the U.S. Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, took a major step by outright banning fake reviews.
And they explicitly included reviews generated by AI.
Yes, they made it a federal issue to use synthetic text for commercial deception.
And the momentum built globally from there. Like in June 2025, Denmark proposed broad legal protections, specifically against unauthorized digital imitations of a person's face and voice.
Which is huge.
They were aiming directly at deepfake impersonation, making it a crime to essentially steal someone's biometric identity.
Then, in October 2025, India proposed strict labeling rules. They drafted regulations requiring all synthetic content to be clearly visually marked with watermarks to prevent misuse during elections and civil unrest.
But some proposals go even further than just labeling or banning commercial fakes. By June 2026, Reuters reported that the UK was considering something much heavier.
The algorithm adjustments.
Yes, they were exploring regulations that would force social media platforms to physically alter their algorithms to prioritize verified, trusted news sources in user feeds and search results.
And that UK proposal cuts to the absolute heart of a massive tension that the Pew Research Center documented extensively. Americans and citizens globally remain deeply, fundamentally divided over how much governments or tech companies should actually intervene in the information ecosystem.
Right, because there's a really fine line between restricting dangerous misinformation that causes harm and censoring free speech and deciding what the truth is.
The friction here is immense. What is fascinating is the potential for misuse. The Wiki Democracy Guy explicitly warns about this. While a democratic government might use these laws to stop a deepfake of a bank run, an authoritarian government might misuse broad misinformation laws to suppress legitimate criticism.
They could silence independent journalism or target political opponents.
Exactly. If the government gets to legally define what is true and what is misinformation, they have a very dangerous tool to eliminate dissent.
You do not want the state to have a monopoly on truth.
No, you don't. So we are stuck in this transitional phase. The technological defenses, like C2PA, are still being built, standardized, and fought over. And the legal defenses are fraught with severe free speech concerns and jurisdictional nightmares.
Which brings us to the most practical, urgent part of our deep dive today. If systemic defenses, the tech standards and the laws, are still a work in progress, what can you, the listener, do right now?
What can you do today?
Right. When you are sitting on your couch, scrolling through your feed, and you see something outrageous, how do you protect yourself?
This is where we have to move away from waiting for institutional solutions and focus on individual empowerment. Let's look at the frontline tactics for verifying suspicious claims. We are talking about actionable media literacy.
And the research shows that we aren't completely helpless here. We do not have to be victims of the algorithm. The Wiki Democracy Guide highlights Finland as the absolute global gold standard for this kind of resilience.
Finland is fascinating.
In January 2026, the AP reported on how Finland integrates media literacy, source evaluation, and AI awareness directly into their core education system. And here is the kicker. They don't start this in high school civics classes.
No.
They start this training at age 3.
Age 3. It is treated as a fundamental life skill. No different than teaching a child to look both ways before crossing the street or not to touch a hot stove.
Right, it's just basic safety.
Finland views media literacy as a critical component of their national cognitive defense. But for those of us who did not get that rigorous training in preschool, there are specific, highly effective techniques we can adopt today.
Let's hear them.
The most powerful one, championed by the Stanford Libraries and the Digital Inquiry Group, is a concept called lateral reading.
I really want to spend some time on this concept because it shifts how we interact with the internet. Usually when we see a suspicious article, we do what they call vertical reading.
Vertical reading, yes.
Let's say I see an article that says, new study proves coffee cures broken bones. I click the link. Vertical reading means I stay on that page and scroll down.
Right, you stay put.
I look at the website's logo. I check if the design looks professional. I might read the About Us page to see if they sound authoritative.
And vertical reading is a trap. It is a complete cognitive trap.
Why is it a trap?
In the digital age, it is incredibly easy and remarkably cheap for a scammer, a state-sponsored disinformation network, or a conspiracy theorist to build a website that looks impeccably professional.
Anyone can buy a nice template.
Exactly. They can buy a premium template, invent a prestigious-sounding name like the Global Institute for Medical Truth, and write a very convincing About Us page. If you stay on the site to judge its credibility based on aesthetics, you are playing their game on their home turf.
So how do we break out of that trap? Let's walk through it for you listening. How do you read laterally?
Lateral reading completely flips the script. Instead of scrolling down the page, you open a new tab. You read across your browser.
Okay, so I leave the Global Institute for Medical Truth entirely.
You leave the environment that the creator controls. You go out into the wider web to investigate what independent, authoritative sources say about that publisher or that claim.
I just Google them.
Yes. You might search the organization's name along with the word funding or bias or credible. You look for consensus outside the bubble.
It is such a simple shift, but it's incredibly powerful because you are relying on the network to verify the node. And the sources provide a really concrete toolkit for taking lateral reading even further, especially with multimedia.
Yes, the tools are great.
First, use reverse image searching. If you see a shocking photo of a violent protest or a natural disaster, you do not just trust the caption. You can right-click or drop that image into a search engine like Google Images or TinyEye to see where else it exists online.
The mechanism of reverse image searching is vital. When you drop an image into a search engine, the algorithm breaks the image down into its visual components, colors, shapes, textures, and looks for exact or partial matches across its index of the internet.
And what do you usually find?
You will often find that the shocking protest from today is actually an AP photograph from a completely different country, taken 5 years ago, that has been maliciously recycled.
And for video, the toolkit mentions the InVid verification plugin. How does that work?
Video is trickier, but the Infinity plugin helps you break a video down into individual static frames known as keyframes.
It turns a video into a series of pictures.
Exactly. Once you extract these keyframes, the tool automatically runs reverse image searches on them across multiple engines. It helps you see if fragments of the footage have been pulled from older, unrelated events.
And for text or viral rumors that your uncle posts on Facebook, there is the Google Fact Check Explorer. This tool allows you to search a specific claim like, did the government ban gas stoves? Across a curated database of professional, nonpartisan fact-checking organizations.
And those professional fact-checkers are a tremendous resource. Organizations like AP Fact Check, Reuters Fact Check, PolitiFact, FactCheck.org, and Snopes.
And they do the heavy lifting for you.
What makes them valuable is not just their conclusions, but their methodology. They show their work. They publish the evidence, the primary documents, and the interview transcripts explaining exactly how they evaluated a claim. You don't have to just trust them. You can follow their evidentiary trail.
The approach to lateral reading also changes slightly depending on the specific topic. The UNESCO and World Health Organization materials in our sources provide very specific guidance for dealing with health and climate claims.
Health claims are particularly dangerous.
They are. The WHO notes that during health emergencies, we often experience an infodemic, a rapid, overwhelming volume of conflicting information, rumors, and deliberate manipulation.
An infodemic thrives on panic and the desire for simple solutions to complex problems.
Right.
The guide emphasizes that for health claims, you should never rely on social media personalities, even if they're wearing a white lab coat and have a stethoscope around their neck in their video.
Costume is not a credential.
Perfectly said. A costume is not a credential. You need to lateral read. Check their actual professional credentials and compare their claims against the consensus of established, peer-reviewed medical institutions.
And the red flags for health misinformation are usually pretty glaring once you not look for them. Sensational claims promising rapid, miraculous cures or narratives suggesting that the entire global medical establishment is hiding a simple, cheap treatment.
Those are enormous red flags.
For climate misinformation, the tactics are slightly different. Bad actors often involve misrepresenting dense scientific findings, cherry-picking data points out of context, or, again, circulating old photographs of weather events as evidence of current catastrophic anomalies.
The same lateral reading discipline applies. Check the sensational claims against established scientific research bodies.
Okay, I have to jump in here with some serious pushback.
Let's hear it.
Because listening to this checklist, running reverse image searches, installing video keyframe plugins, opening new tabs, checking medical credentials against peer-reviewed journals, it sounds exhausting.
It does sound like a lot.
I am a busy person. I don't have time to be an investigative journalist on my lunch break while I'm just trying to scroll through my feed and look at dog videos.
That is the most common and entirely understandable reaction to media literacy training. It sounds like a lot of work. But here's the secret that researchers at Stanford found when they observed how professional fact-checkers operate compared to students.
Okay.
Lateral reading actually takes less time than vertical reading.
Wait, really? How is that possible?
Think about the student who stays on the fake website. They spend 10 minutes reading the About Us page, analyzing the tone of the article, looking at the layout, and trying to puzzle out if it feels true.
They're trying to solve a mystery.
Right. They burn cognitive energy on a puzzle designed to trick them. The professional fact-checker spends 2 seconds on the site, opens a new tab, searches, is that website a credible source? Sees a Wikipedia entry noting it's a known disinformation front, and closes the tab.
Wow.
They reach a definitive answer in 30 seconds.
That is a really compelling point. You bypass the maze entirely by just looking at an aerial map, but still, you don't have to verify every single meme or joke you see.
Exactly. You prioritize. You do not need to run a forensic analysis on a video of a cat playing a piano.
Thank goodness.
You deploy these tools for claims that matter. Specifically, you prioritize verification before you share information that could influence how someone votes in an election, affects your family's health decisions, or asks for your money.
That makes it much more manageable. But even with these tools, what is the first step? If I see something wild, what do I actually do in that moment?
The most effective tool in your arsenal is not a browser plugin or a search engine. It is entirely psychological. It is the pause.
The pause. Let's break that down.
Disinformation, Political propaganda and financial scams are all engineered by algorithms and bad actors to achieve one specific goal: to bypass your critical thinking by triggering your emotions.
They want you worked up.
They want you angry, terrified, or deeply righteously excited. Why? Because psychological research shows that high emotional arousal prompts immediate action, specifically sharing.
When you are furious, your brain's amygdala hijacks your rational thought processes. You don't want to research. You want to react.
Yes, exactly.
It's like realizing your heart rate is suddenly spiking because of a tweet you just read.
Yes. The absolute best defense mechanism you possess is learning to recognize your own physical and emotional response. When a piece of content makes you feel intense outrage, disgust, or urgent panic, use that physiological reaction as an alarm bell.
It means they got you.
It is a signal that you are being manipulated. Deliberately take a breath. Take your hands off the keyboard. Pause.
So if they can make you angry, they can make you share. And if they can make you share, they can shape the narrative using you as a free distributor.
You become part of their network.
Right. A few minutes of pausing and verifying can prevent false information from reaching thousands of other people through your network.
Precisely. You break the chain of transmission.
Speaking of making you act on emotion, false information isn't just about shaping your worldview or deciding how you vote. A huge portion of this ecosystem is actively trying to empty your bank account.
Yes, the financial aspect is huge.
Which brings us to our final major topic: personal armor. We need to talk about digital hygiene and preventing targeted impersonation.
And the financial toll here is staggering. We are not just talking about a few gullible people losing $20 here and there. According to April 2026 data from the Federal Trade Commission, reported fraud losses reached an astounding $12.5 billion in 2024 alone.
$12.5 billion. That is an economy in itself.
It is an industrialized criminal enterprise. And the FTC specifically points out that social media has become the primary channel for this extraction.
So they're finding victims on social platforms.
Yes. We are talking about elaborate investment fraud, heartbreaking romance scams that stretch on for months, and fake shopping offers. But the threat that really jumps out from these reports, the one that is escalating the fastest, is the AI impersonation threat.
This is where synthetic media stops being a theoretical political problem and gets deeply, devastatingly personal. Criminals are now using AI to clone voices and generate photographs to impersonate people you trust implicitly.
Yes.
They impersonate government agencies, banks, technology companies, employers, and most maliciously, family members. The FTC noted in 2025 that older adults, in particular, are experiencing catastrophic financial losses due to these targeted impersonation scams.
We need to dissect the anatomy of one of these scams because it explains why they are so successful. It is not just a random Nigerian prince email asking for a wire transfer anymore. Let's trace the data of how a scammer targets a family.
Okay, let's say a scammer wants to target my mother, using me as the bait.
Oh.
How do they do it? Walk me through it.
The scammer starts by scraping public data. They go to your public social media profiles. On Facebook or LinkedIn, they map out your family tree. They identify that your mother is your primary connection.
Okay, so they know who to call?
Right. From your public Instagram or TikTok, they find a video where you are speaking. They only need about 3 to 5 seconds of clear audio of your voice.
Just 3 seconds.
That is all modern text-to-speech AI requires to build a highly accurate phonetic clone of your voice, capturing your pitch, your cadence, and your accent.
That's terrifying.
It gets worse. Next, the scammer uses a spoofing service so that when they call your mother's phone, the caller ID physically displays your actual phone number.
So my mom's phone rings at 2 a.m., it says my name and my number on the screen, and when she picks up, she hears my exact voice.
And the clone voice says, "Mom, I've been in a terrible car accident. I failed a breathalyzer. I'm in jail, and the public defender says I need bail money right now, or I'm being transferred to a maximum security facility. Please don't tell Dad. I'm so embarrassed. I need you to send the money to this specific digital wallet."
Oh my God. That leverages every ounce of a parent's love and panic against them.
It is psychological warfare. And the warning signs to watch for in these scenarios are almost always rooted in that manipulation we discussed: urgency and isolation.
Right, they want you to act fast.
Scammers frequently demand immediate, unthinking action. They will tell the victim not to hang up the phone, not to call anyone else, and to keep the transaction a secret. They want to isolate the victim from their support network so they cannot think laterally or ask for advice.
The FTC guidelines also heavily highlight the payment methods as the ultimate red flag. If someone on the phone, even if they claim to be from the IRS, the local police department, or your own grandson, asks you to pay via cryptocurrency, by buying retail gift cards, by sending a cash courier directly to your house, or using an unusual peer-to-peer payment app, well, those are enormous glaring red flags.
Absolutely. Real government agencies, real bail bondsmen, and real hospitals do not demand payment in iTunes or Target gift cards. Never.
And alongside these visceral vocal impersonations, we are seeing incredibly sophisticated phishing tactics. Phishing messages are designed to trick you into handing over your passwords or financial details.
They use the same urgency.
Exactly. They will send urgent security warnings, like a text saying, your bank account has been locked due to suspicious activity, click here to verify your identity, or fake account suspensions, your email will be deleted in 24 hours if you don't click here, or unexpected invoices for expensive items you never bought, complete with a helpful customer service number to call to dispute the charge.
The goal is always to create a moment of panic where you click the link and enter your credentials into a fake website that they control.
So how do we build our personal armor against this industrialized machinery? The Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, provides a very clear philosophy for digital hygiene in our sources. Let's talk through the core habits we need to adopt. It starts with the absolute foundation, passwords.
The rule is simple, but execution is where people fail. You must use long, unique passwords for every single account you own.
Which is hard.
The problem is, humans are terrible at remembering unique, complex strings of characters. So we reuse passwords. We use the same password for our banking app that we use for a random flower delivery website.
And when that flower delivery website gets hacked,
The criminals take your email and that password, and they use automated bots to test that combination across thousands of high-value sites, banks, email providers, social media. If you reuse passwords, a breach on an obscure, poorly secured website gives criminals the master key to your digital life.
so what's the fix?
The only practical way to solve this is by using a reputable password manager. It generates complex passwords and remembers them for you. You only have to remember one master password.
The next crucial layer of defense CISA recommends is enabling multi-factor authentication, or MFA. How does this mechanism actually protect you?
MFA provides a secondary physical security barrier. Even if a criminal somehow guesses, steals, or phishes your password, the password alone is not enough to get in.
They need the second key.
The system requires a second factor to prove you are who you say you are. Usually, this is a time-sensitive code sent to your physical phone via text, or better yet, generated by an authenticator app on your device. So the criminal has your password, but they do not physically possess your phone, so they are locked out.
Another habit CISA emphasizes is installing software and operating system updates promptly. I know everyone, including myself, hates it when their phone forces them to restart in the middle of the day. But these updates aren't just giving you new emojis, right?
No, they are critical security patches. When Apple, Google, or Microsoft release an update, they are often patching known, documented vulnerabilities in the code that criminals are actively exploiting in the wild.
So delaying it is dangerous.
Delaying an update is like knowing there's a broken lock on your front door and deciding you will get around to fixing it next month, even though burglars are currently walking through the neighborhood.
And the final piece, the hygiene puzzle, is critical for preventing those targeted AI impersonations we talked about. Reviewing your privacy settings. We need to limit publicly available personal data.
Yes, limit the data out there.
Information about your employment history, your intricate family relationships, your current location, and your travel plans can be scraped from several public platforms and combined into a dossier.
We have to connect the dots here. The data you casually overshare on a public social media profile, tagging your mother, posting a video of your dog, checking in at your favorite coffee shop, is the exact data set an AI uses to craft a personalized, devastating scam against you or your family.
It's ammo for them.
If your profile is public, a scammer has all the context they need to engineer a perfectly believable crisis.
That is sobering. Okay, let's run one more practical scenario.
Yeah.
Because CISA highlights the importance of verifying offline. Let's say I get a text from you right now. It comes from an unknown number, but it says, hey, it's me. I dropped my phone in a lake. This is a burner phone. I'm stranded in another city. My wallet was stolen, and I desperately need you to wire $500 to this account so I can get a hotel and a bus ticket home. What is my immediate first step?
Your absolute first step is do not reply to the message. Do not click any links in the message. You deploy the psychological tool we discussed. You pause.
Okay, I bought.
Then you verify the claim through an independent, known channel. You call my original saved phone number.
But the text just said your phone is in a lake.
It does not matter what the text says. You call the original number anyway to verify. If I do not answer, you call my spouse, you call my workplace, or you message me on a different platform. You actively break the isolation the scammer is trying to create.
Even if the text uses our inside jokes or sounds exactly like you.
Even then, adopting strong digital privacy and security does not mean you have to delete all your accounts, throw your phone in the ocean, and live off the grid in the woods.
Though it sounds tempting sometimes.
It does, but it really just means making deliberate, conscious decisions about what you share, who you share it with, and adopting a default posture of verification whenever money, sensitive information, or urgent action is requested.
We have covered an immense amount of ground today, navigating some incredibly complex terrain. Let's recap the journey we just took. We started by exploring the mechanics of how generative AI and synthetic media have completely eroded the traditional concept of visual and audio evidence.
Right, the broken X-ray machine.
We traced the timeline from glitchy novelties to hallucinated legal citations and deeply manipulative AI memes that hijack our sensory trust.
We examined how this rapid technological shift places an unbearable pressure on traditional journalism, fueling a severe trust crisis.
And we look at how algorithms prioritize emotional engagement over factual accuracy, elevating untested influencers, and how bad actors exploit the liar's dividend to hide their authentic corruption behind the mere existence of deepfakes.
We looked at the systemic defenses being built on a global scale, analyzing the cryptographic promise of provenance technology and metadata, but acknowledging its current fragility as files move across the web.
We also surveyed the global policy landscape, noting the deep tension between regulating deception and protecting free expression.
Which led us to the most crucial part, personal defense.
Right. We learned the mechanics of lateral reading, leaving the suspicious website to verify a source through independent consensus, and the necessity of practicing strict digital hygiene with password managers, MFA, and lockdown privacy settings to protect against targeted AI impersonation.
And tying all of these tactics together is the psychological discipline to simply pause before sharing, reacting, or sending money based on emotionally charged information. It is about recognizing when your amygdala is being hijacked.
The pause is the foundation of modern media literacy. But before we sign off, I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder. We have seen how our digital spaces are becoming increasingly flooded with synthetic content, AI clones, and manipulated realities. The X-ray machine is broken, and the muddy waters are rising.
They're rising fast.
So if digital evidence continues to degrade at this pace, will the ultimate premium experience, the only space we truly deeply trust, revert entirely to the physical world?
That is a profound question about the future of society.
Right. As digital reality becomes infinitely reproducible and entirely suspect, will analog, offline, face-to-face interactions become the new, ultimate standard of verification? If you want to know if a politician actually said something or if a crisis is actually happening, you might literally have to go see it with your own eyes, in person, in the physical world.
A return to the analog.
It brings us right back to where we started. If the digital diagnostic tools fail us, it turns out the best way to find the truth might be to step away from the screen entirely and look at the physical world around us. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and keep reading laterally.